We are beginning now the next Maimer, Nasato Liریایך Neis Lis Noises, which was said by the Rebbe by the Farbrengen of Yud Beis Tammuz, Tav Shin Yud Aleph. So firstly, to give a little bit of a introduction to the general concept of this Maimer. We know that Yud Beis Tammuz is the day of the liberation of the Frierdiker Rebbe when he was released from his exile after he was imprisoned in communist Russia for spreading Torah and Yiddishkeit. And on the 12th of Tammuz, which is also the previous Rebbe's birthday, is the day that he was released from, that he was told that he's free to go. And the 13th of Tammuz, because the 12th of Tammuz was then a public holiday in Russia. And the 13th of Tammuz was when he got the official papers that he was able to leave. Ever since, the 12th and the 13th of Tammuz are both days which are a holiday celebrated with Chassidish Farbrengens, in which the strengthening of Torah and Yiddishkeit and spreading Torah and Yiddishkeit is discussed, and good resolutions are taken in that regard. Now the Frierdiker Rebbe on Yud Beis Tammuz sent a mimer to the Hasidim in Russia that they should learn in order to celebrate the holiday of Yud Beis Tammuz. And that mimer began with the words Nasato Liریایך Neis Lis Noises. The words are from the pasuk in Tehillim that David HaMelech says to Hashem, "You gave those who fear you Neis, a nisayon, a test, in order to be tested with it. Mipnei, and the reason that you did this is because of the truth that Avraham Avinu showed to the world." The Maimer discusses the greatness of the Avodah of Nisyonis, the special Avodah of Nisyonis of tests. And the Rebbe says that with this it's also understood why the previous Rebbe specifically sent this Maimer to Russia. Because it was at that time they still had a lot of tests regarding learning Torah and strengthening Torah and Yiddishkeit. And the Maimer was meant to strengthen them and to give them the power and the courage in order to overcome these tests by understanding how one must overcome nisyonis, one must overcome tests. The Rebbe in the first year of the Rebbe's leadership, Tav Shin Yud Aleph, 1951, which is the Mamarim that we're learning now, the Rebbe republished this Maimer of the Frierdiker Rebbe Nasato Liریایך, and that Yud Beis Tammuz, the Rebbe said by the Farbrengen, also a Maimer based on this Maimer of the previous Rebbe. From this we can understand that obviously this Avodah of Nisyonis, of overcoming tests, is not just something that specifically deals with the tests that they had to overcome then in Russia, but something specific that has to do with our generation and our time, and specifically what we have to learn on Yud Beis Tammuz in our time, because that's why the Rebbe, specifically the first year, and the first Yud Beis Tammuz Farbrengen, chose to say a mimer about this concept. So before we actually go into the mimer, let's have a general preview about the general idea of the Avodah of Nisyonis. And as a result, we'll take this, and Mr. Hashem will take it over the next few days. We'll learn the Maimer. So when it comes Gimel Tammuz, which Gimel Tammuz, as we know, is the day that the previous Rebbe left jail. He went out of prison and went to his exile in Kastarama, later to be freed on Yud Beis Tammuz. And it's obvious that the whole concept of Gimel Tammuz of then, as well as Yud Beis and Yud Gimel Tammuz, and as well as specifically this very first Maimer that the Rebbe gave us for Yud Beis, that the Rebbe gave us and said to us, and Yud Beis Tammuz has a special connection also with our Avodah in our generation, and specifically in a time of concealment, since Gimel Tammuz, the third of Tammuz, Tafshin Nun Daled, when we no longer see the Rebbe with our physical eyes, that there's a special avodah that we must do in holding strong, in strengthening our faith and preparing ourselves to greet Mashiach. What's the avodah of tests? Let's take a step back. What's the general avodah of a person in this world? We actually learned it in many of the previous mamarim, and specifically in the last mimer that we learned, Parshas Shlach, that the avodah for which a neshama comes down into this world, the neshama comes from the highest possible place, and it descends me'igra rama lebira mikta, from a very high roof down to a very deep pit. It comes down into the physical world where it is imprisoned. The neshama in this world is like it's in prison, because what is a person in prison? A person that's locked up in jail. Nobody took away the person, but they took away the ability of the person to express himself. He can't go outside. He can't do whatever he wishes to do. He can't speak whatever he wants to speak, etc., etc. That for a person is considered to be imprisonment. For a plant, if you close it up, you gate it around with a gate, it's not considered to be imprisoned. The plant just has to be able to grow. An animal that's gated into a place is imprisoned in the small place that it's imprisoned in. In fact, even in Halacha and Hilchas Shabbos, we find a very interesting distinction depending what type of animal it is, what's considered trapping it on Shabbos. For some animals, the fact that it's closed in a big yard is not considered trapping because it still has a lot of space where to go. For a different animal, when it's trapped into a big yard, it's still not big enough for it. And that's the idea of imprisonment. The neshama, the soul, wants to express itself. It wants to express its yearning for Hashem. It wants to express its closeness to Hashem. And more than that, the soul, by nature, its essence is it wishes to express the reality of the fact that everything is Hashem. It's imprisoned in the body, it's imprisoned in a material, physical world that denies the existence of its creator, that doesn't allow the person to realize the truth that everything is Hashem. Why did the neshama come into this imprisonment? Only in order to accomplish a mission, to fulfill a goal that as a result the neshama itself will accomplish the purpose for which it came down, and as a result it itself will also be elevated to a place which is even higher than before it came down into this world. What's this purpose and this mission? So that's something which specifically in Maimer Parshas Shlach we learned. There's the avodah called the avodas habirurim. Birurim, the word birurim, also from Hilchas Shabbos, boirer, means to choose out. When a person's eating a food and taking one part out of the other, there's two different parts of the food, takes that one part, that's called boirer. Avodas habirurim, it's like the idea of boirer, which means to take out the spark of godliness that's imprisoned inside the physical object, to free it, to let it be free and to let it be able to be revealed and thus connect to its source. Everything in this world has a spark of godliness that sustains it. Without it, it wouldn't be able to exist. The spark of godliness is the letters in Lashon HaKodesh, the word in Lashon HaKodesh that creates it, that every second recreates it, the words spoken by Hashem. That spark of godliness is hidden. It's imprisoned in it because it's not able to be expressed. We see only the physical thing. We don't see its sustenance. When a person comes and reveals and realizes and recognizes the reality of this godly spark, he takes food and he makes a bracha. It all became into existence for Hashem's word. He's freeing that spark. He takes the food and he uses it in order to serve Hashem. He eats something and he uses the strength that he gets in order to serve Hashem. That means he's showing, he's expressing the fact that the reality of this physical object is only created by Hashem in order to serve Hashem. That's called avodas habirurim. Person goes to a table, he eats on the table, and he has guests. He feeds poor people. He speaks Torah on the table. The person walks on the street and thinks words of Torah. Or he walks on the street in order to go to do a mitzvah. Each and every one of those actions is revealing the reality of the world, that it's really the reality, it's created by Hashem. That's called avodas habirurim. That's stage 1 in avodas habirurim. Boirer, choose, pick out, refine the physical cover, and bring out and free the spark of godliness so that it can be connected to its source by the fact that it's no longer imprisoned and it's able to now express itself in what it really is. Stage 2 of avodas habirurim is in another type. In Kabbalah, the words that are used is dein hanyon lei and dein loy hanyon lei. There are certain aspects that Hashem receives pleasure from, and there are those that He doesn't receive pleasure from. Which means He created everything. He created the positive and He created the negative as well. But the positive, He wants that it should be used in order to serve Him. In the negative, which also has a spark of godliness that's inside it. Let's say there's a piece of non-kosher meat, non-kosher cheese, non-kosher chocolate bar, and a person goes and eats it by making a bracha and uses the koyach, the strength that he got from it in order to serve Hashem. He didn't elevate this spark because Hashem said don't eat it. So he actually went against Hashem, even if he didn't know about it. But practically he used something which Hashem said don't use, so it can't be used in order to serve Hashem. By that he's not freeing the spark. On the contrary, he's imprisoning the spark even more. In a way that it's very hard now to get it out. Either we have to wait till Mashiach comes, or a person does tshuva me'ava, where he transforms the transgression into a mitzvah. That's the spark that's in a way that it can't be elevated. How is that spark elevated? When a person sees that chocolate bar, or that piece of food, or whatever physical, material being it is, which is screaming out, so to speak, come, use me, go against Hashem, show that I exist on my own and I can even do something against what Hashem wants. And a person says, no, your true existence is Hashem, and therefore you can't be used to go against Hashem. When a person has that desire to want to do it, and he doesn't do it, then that's the way he elevates the spark. And like the Gemara says, Yashav, when a person sits and doesn't transgress a transgression, he receives a reward as if he did a mitzvah. What does that mean, a person sits and doesn't transgress as a transgression? That means that he had a chance to do it. He had something that pulled him to do it, and he didn't do it. That's stage 2 of avodas habirurim. And in that itself, there's various different levels. There could be a spark that's so deep down that it goes into avodah zarah, something that its entire existence is to go totally against Hashem. And a person's elevating and refining this spark in a general way, besides for when something has to be used for pikuach nefesh, for saving the Jewish life. So for example, then something which is not kosher can also be elevated. But in the regular way to elevate it is through dein loy hanyon lei, by not doing it. by not giving into it and by saying, no, you're not an existence of your own. It's all coming from Hashem. There's the third avodah, it's called avodah of nisyonis, which, Be'ezras Hashem, we will continue on with tomorrow.